What is a post-closing possession agreement in New York City real estate? We will demystify this topic in the following video. I'm Nick at Hauseit, New York City's largest for sale by owner and buyer closing credit company established in 2014. If you liked today's video, we'd love for you to subscribe and like the video. And if you're looking to buy or sell in New York City and you're interested in saving money on commissions, give us a shout. Check out our website, hauseit.com. The spelling is below, or feel free to send us an email, team@hauseit.com. Now let's get started. So, what is a post-closing possession agreement? You may also have heard of this in a different terminology, such as a sale-leaseback agreement. Well, in essence, both of these phrases mean the same thing. In a post-closing possession agreement, or a sale-leaseback, the seller of the property is allowed to remain in the property that's been sold for a period of time after closing. You may be asking, why on earth would that happen? If somebody sold their place, don't they want to move out? Well, there are a number of reasons why a post-closing possession agreement might make sense. In particular, it makes sense when the seller doesn't necessarily know where they're going. The seller might be still in the process of looking for a new home, or the seller might have already bought a new place, but they're currently undergoing a multi-month renovation that has a number of months left to completion. Therefore, a post-closing possession agreement really is originated on the side of the seller. The seller asks for it, and during the course of a negotiation with the purchaser, a decision is made as to whether or not the parties will come to a meeting of the minds and whether or not the purchaser will be okay with it in principle and whether or not the purchaser will be okay with the specific demands associated with the post-closing possession agreement. And we're going to go over those right now. The most important components of a post-closing possession agreement in New York City consists of the following: the length of the post-closing possession agreement, the escrow amount associated with the sale-leaseback, the cost of the post-closing possession agreement, and finally, the cost of the holdover fee. The typical length of a sale-leaseback in New York City is anywhere up to 2 months. Most lenders are relatively uncomfortable with anything longer than this, so the maximum you'll probably see is 3 months. But it's usually highly improbable for a post-closing possession agreement, particularly for a condo or for a co-op or for a home that's being financed, to be any longer than 2 or 3 months. The cost of a post-closing possession agreement is completely negotiable, but in general, it is a cost that will usually be similar to the actual mortgage payment and the carrying costs associated with what the purchaser is going to pay in the future. More specifically, if upon closing the purchaser owes $4,000 a month in the mortgage and $2,000 a month in the common charges, the total cost to the purchaser is $6,000 a month. So naturally, if the seller remains in the property after closing, the purchaser would need at least $6,000 a month. But seeing as it's negotiable, depending on the course of a negotiation, the purchaser might accept less than that, or they might require more. It is completely dependent on all of the specifics associated with a particular transaction, such as the price that the purchaser is willing to pay, and the genuine need of the seller for the post-closing possession agreement. The escrow amount associated with a post-closing possession agreement is simply an amount of money that is set aside at closing and not given to the seller until they vacate the premises at the end of the post-closing possession agreement. Consider it like a security deposit. If you're the purchaser and you close on a place, but you have somebody else living there, you need some amount of money to be held in escrow to give you protection against the possible liability or damage that might arise from having a third party essentially living in your home. The most common escrow amount for a post-closing possession agreement in New York City is anywhere from 2 to 3% of the purchase price. So if you're buying a $1 million place, a realistic escrow, a reasonable escrow, might be $20,000, might be $25,000, or might even be $30,000. But this is negotiable, so it is conceivable that it could be $100,000 or it could be $10,000. And again, it all depends on the other components of the deal and how things have been negotiated. And quite frankly, who has more leverage? Does the buyer have more leverage, or does the seller hold all the cards? Another important consideration with a post-closing possession agreement is the amount of the holdover fee. The holdover fee is what the seller or the occupant would owe per day if they overstay the length of the post-closing possession agreement. We hope this never happens, but the amount of the holdover fee actually determines in some sense, whether or not somebody is motivated to actually hold over. For example, if you just purchased a $3 million two-bedroom apartment, it's a pretty nice place to call home. If the holdover fee is $100 a day, well, the seller might just want to hang out there for an extra 3 months or 4 months, because $100 is a lot less than the $800 or $1,000 you would need for a multi-room hotel in New York City. So in general, the holdover fee is negotiable. The buyer wants it to be as high as possible, and the seller wants it to be as low as possible. Your attorneys on a transaction will usually be the ones who negotiate the escrow amount, the holdover fee, as well as the cost of the actual agreement. Keep in mind that real estate brokers might be involved in some or all of the terms of the post-closing possession agreement, particularly the actual cost of it and the length. But the attorneys are the ones who actually draft the documentation, and in most cases are the ones who really get in the weeds on things such as the holdover fee. A post-closing possession agreement will also require that adequate insurance is maintained to mitigate the risk of anything happening during the actual term of the agreement. If you're thinking of buying or selling and you're not familiar with post-closing possession agreement, you want to make sure that your broker and your attorney are very familiar with this topic. There's a lot that can be negotiated and there's a lot that can go wrong. It is important to have someone who is very experienced on this particular niche of New York City real estate jargon. We hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Nick at Hauseit. If you're interested in saving money when buying or selling real estate in New York City, give us a shout. Visit our website, hauseit.com, or send us an email, team@hauseit.com. And please do us a favor, if you like this content, please like our video and subscribe. We promise to release fresh content on a regular basis.